and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. That was When Lambo by Mark Battaglia, who writes all of the introductory music, original music for the Smaulgld podcast, BitChute, YouTubes. Today is the 17th of September 2019. It is a Tuesday. Tonight's topic, Bitcoin for coffee or Lambos or both. Now, there has been a lot of discussion. A lot of it is drowned out because the Bitcoin maximalists, those in favor of hyper Bitcoinization, the ones that really have a vested interest in Bitcoin, using the term shitcoin and so on, they have really pushed forward the narrative that there's one coin to rule them all, everything else is just a waste of time. And they've come up with a very interesting set of arguments that get parroted and repeated on Twitter, on Facebook, all over the place, on Reddit. This idea that somehow only Bitcoin, there's a gold analogy, there's a stock flow analogy, and none of these analogies are really very relevant. And yet, once you accept the fact that you're going to use this analogy, it all sounds logical, and then it's case closed, game over, I'm not listening to anything else. The idea is that it's Bitcoin, everything else is a scam. And interestingly enough, that's what people say about Bitcoin. So they're basically doing the same thing that the no-coiners do, which is essentially just dismissing anything, and it's in favor of Bitcoin. And I call that Bitcoin derangement syndrome. It's similar to what you see in the gold community, the silver community. You fall in love with an asset, and then it's the only asset. I've seen it with silver bugs. They insist gold is, it's astounding. They insist that gold is really not that valuable, that it's silver. There's people in the gold community who scoff at silver. There's people in the gold and silver community that scoff at any cryptocurrencies. There's Bitcoiners who scoff at Litecoiners, and there's Litecoiners who scoff at XRP. It's all very, I would say, beyond sophomoric. It's actually freshman. It's even kindergarten, because there's no such thing, even gold, as one asset. We're going to get to that in a second. Well, let's just take a look at how Bitcoin has developed so far. Now, Bitcoin, it's almost like going back to the founding fathers. People are looking at they're looking at Satoshi's white paper. They're having these arguments over what it's supposed to be. Is it supposed to be a peer-to-peer? Can we have these second layers? Should we have bigger blocks? I'm going to suggest something in addition to bigger blocks or second layer, but more blocks. We'll get to that why. But I open up with this Bitcoin maximalists want to take this to buy coffee at the local corner shop. And what I mean by this is Bitcoin is, I don't deny, currently the best cryptocurrency, the original, but the best doesn't necessarily mean the only. Now, what I mean by want to take this to buy coffee at the local corner shop, it's overkill. Right now, Bitcoin's hash rate is expanding exponentially, which means that the network is more and more secure. Now, to someone who has Bitcoin derangement syndrome, that means that's it. That's the only coin we ever need, and everything else is a scam. That's not logic. That if something is doing well, that everything else is a scam. Okay, there's a little more specifics of what they say is that Bitcoin is a store of value. Okay, and if Bitcoin's a store of value, somehow it needs to become a store of value, then it'll be used as a transactional currency. I don't know why that follows. That doesn't mean that. We've never had something that started out as a store of value. Bitcoin is not like gold, is not like silver. Litecoin's not like silver in many regards. Gold and silver existed as commodities. It's the whole regression theory of money, that somehow it has to be valuable in advance before people will exchange it in and of itself. Bitcoin and Litecoin were created to be money, and as such, they have no prior use and no prior demand. So, the fact that they are money as such to begin with, they have to only be viewed as currency or money. We're going to get into the other thing, this obsession about whether something is money or not. Just hold that thought. But let's look at what Bitcoin maximalists are actually saying, and I think it's a delusion, I think it's a derangement, that Bitcoin is a store of value, but it's also going to be used for small transactions, large transactions, privacy transactions. It'll be used as smart contracts. It'll be stuffed into ETFs, traded on exchanges. And also, eventually, because of the hyper-Bitcoinization, central banks are going to hold it. Well, stop. even gold has never really achieved all of those. Obviously, not smart contracts. For the most part, gold was not really ever used for small transactions. It was too valuable. The coins that circulated were silver coins. So the idea that somehow Bitcoin is like gold, okay, well, if it's like gold, then gold was never like this. And that somehow Bitcoin will be like gold is kind of ridiculous because Bitcoin has not achieved any transactional velocity. Gold once had it, so did silver. And yet, the Bitcoin maximalists, they diss silver. They say it doesn't have the stock flow, and therefore it hasn't been money. Well, that's not true. Silver was, and I'm not defending, so see, the thing is, when people listen, they have a horse in the race. They want someone to defend silver, smash silver, defend Bitcoin, smash Bitcoin. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just looking at the facts. Silver has operated as money for thousands of years. I've argued against David Morgan on the Kennedy Report that silver currently isn't money. But not for this ridiculous stock flow ratio. It's because no one uses it as a currency. In order for the definition of money to be met, it has to be widely accepted and it has to be widely transacted in. And silver today is not a medium of exchange. So I say it's not money. That doesn't mean in the past it wasn't. I call it has a dormant monetary component. But this idea that only Bitcoin can satisfy all of the demands, and then somehow it's the gold analogy, I don't buy. But let's move on. As we say, the best is not only the only thing, and the best does have a premium, but alternatives have relative value. Clearly. It's not like, well, silver isn't money like gold is, so silver has no value. No. Silver has other values. Silver has a monetary component that isn't as strong as gold's. And gold is not absolute. It's not the only money that's out there. And so gold has a premium because, yes, most of it is used for investment or as a monetary asset, but it's also used for jewelry and dentistry and other assets. So it's not a pure monetary asset itself. Only Bitcoin and Litecoin or cryptocurrencies are pure monetary assets because they have no other use. You can't put a Bitcoin in the solar panel. You can't put Litecoin in dentistry. It doesn't work. So the idea that somehow any asset, whether it's a cryptocurrency, whether it's a commodity, that the best is the only, it's really a derangement to actually think that way because there's no example of anything like that. Another example I give is, okay, so let's say that Bitcoin is the best. And let's say it has the potential to be the best at everything, which it might. If Lightning Network gets off the ground, second layer solutions, SegWit, all the stuff that people are saying that'll help Bitcoin become a transactional currency, if they all come true, well, does it mean just because it can perform all those functions that it should? The example I like, and analogies are never perfect, but Babe Ruth was first a great pitcher. He was Cy Young type award-winning pitcher. He could throw shutouts. He really was one of the best pitchers of his time, but he was also a great hitter. And the Boston Red Sox moved him into a full-time player, so he stopped pitching, and he became a tremendous batter. Well, that's similar to Bitcoin or gold. It's Gresham's law. I mean, the good money drives out the bad money. If Bitcoin is really that valuable, who wants to spend it on buying coffee? I mean, you may want to buy a yacht. You may want to buy a Lambo with it because you might have to wait 20 minutes for the transaction to close. But you know what? That transaction will go through more security than any other cryptocurrency. But you really need that for coffee? I mean, it's nice. But then you say, well, no, don't worry about that. We're not going to have to put, all the hash rate against your coffee purchase. We can run that through the Lightning Network. But why? If you have another currency that can be done on-chain, why do you need to go through Lightning Network just so that Bitcoin can be used for coffee? That's back to the tank analogy. Yes, you can take a tank down to the corner store and buy coffee with it, but if you have a motorbike or a bicycle or a car, why wouldn't you take that instead? Sure, you can get there with the tank and you can get out of the tank and you can have people looking at you and you're saying, yeah, I'd like to buy a cup of coffee, and then turn your tank around and go home. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but see, the Bitcoin people think, Well, because it's Bitcoin and I own it, and then gold and stock flow. I don't know what they're talking about. So Bitcoin can be used for coffee, clearly. Even today, I mean, you can do it on chain. You can buy coffee with Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is becoming more like gold. I mean, they want to use the gold analogy. Held and stored and not used as a medium of exchange. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's how the market goes, and you want to believe that Bitcoin is a store of value. Now, there's people that are no coiners will tell you Bitcoin is not a store of value and it will never be money. And they make all these goofy arguments too. But the idea is if what the market does with Bitcoin is what determines what it is. Not no coiners, not Bitcoin maximalists. So right now, what Bitcoin is, to some people, it's a store of value. That's why they buy it. In fact, if you are a hodler, the reason you have it is either as a store of value or a speculative asset. You don't have it so you can buy coffee. You can buy coffee tomorrow without Bitcoin. There's no reason for you to want to buy coffee with Bitcoin. You want it to go higher, you want to hold it, whatever you want to do. I don't think people are holding on to Bitcoin in cold storage thinking one day I'll be able to buy coffee with this. To me, it's ludicrous to even think that's why you'd want Bitcoin. The main use for Bitcoin as a medium of exchange may be, as I say, to buy yachts, Lambos, luxury homes, but not coffee. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what the market does. There's no reason why developers need to be working on making Bitcoin work off-chain because, and I don't want to sound like Roger Ver, but when you're off-chain, then the whole purpose of being Bitcoin kind of goes away. Now you're doing some second layer development work so that Bitcoin could become something else. But is there really the demand for that? You have to ask yourself that question. Do you feel lucky when you do that? What is the purpose of the Lightning Network to make Bitcoin do something that no one wants it to do? Now, there was a period of time where there was some clogging in the network, but that's all gone now. So I say Bitcoin is becoming more like gold and held and stored and not used as a medium exchange. Nothing wrong with that. This is just a double tweet here. Okay, let's move on now. To a point someone was making that, actually Jeff I think is a Bitcoin follower, a Smaulgld subscriber or follower. He says Bitcoin could become a type of reserve asset. Okay, could. It's easier to use than gold for that purpose. I think Bitcoin and gold are both used in a multipolar world. That's an inside joke with the gold back you on game changer China to crush the dollar. But if Bitcoin becomes a store of wealth and used only for big transactions, not for coffee, so what? But that would mean you don't need Lightning Network. So why is everyone building out Lightning Network, which would be 100% irrelevant? No one buys a cup of coffee with gold. In fact, what the Lightning Network actually is analogous to is gold money. So when people set up a gold money account, I don't have statistics on this. If you buy gold money, the main advantage I think to having gold money is that you get to store your gold with a bankruptcy remote entity where that gold is held in your name and you can have it sent to you, or you can spend it digitally, you can sell it online. I don't think people are buying gold on gold money so that, and they do offer a credit card. I mean, sure, go out and spend your gold. But again, why would you want to spend your gold? The only reason you want to spend your gold or your Bitcoin is if you have a massive gain, fiat gain. In which case, you want to spend a lot of it. You don't want to buy coffee with it. Like, so day to day, you wouldn't open up a gold money account and then use it to spend the gold. Why? You spend your fiat. The whole reason you put the money into gold is because the gold is going to hold the value and the fiat isn't. So you spend, I mean, to make it the analogy easier, if you had gold or Venezuelan bolivars, what would you spend? If the bolivar would buy you a cup of coffee, you'd get rid of that right away. You wouldn't spend the gold. So the idea that you're going to build out this Lightning Network so we can spend Bitcoin, I just don't see why you would need to do that if there are other mediums of exchange that may involve either fiat or other cryptocurrencies. Now, I asked a question, and this poll is not dispositive. It means nothing. There's only 35 people answered it, but it's indicative. If second layer solutions like Lightning fail to help Bitcoin scale, which there's no guarantee that Lightning Network's going to work, despite all the work that's being put into it, currently, I don't see a lot of people using. You can tell me about your brother, your aunt, your uncle, or somebody used a Lightning Network, or they have Lightning on their wallets. It's for all purposes, it's really not being used. But if it doesn't help Bitcoin scale to accommodate billions of small transactions, will that destroy the future and viability and value of Bitcoin? Well, my answer is no. That was half the people said. Bitcoin has other uses. Of course it does. If you think about what we have, like gold, you really don't. It doesn't accommodate billions of small transactions. Is gold valuable? Of course it is. Does gold money make gold more valuable? Not really. I mean, it's nice to have, and it'd be nice to be able, oh, you know what? I got a 0.0012374429 Bitcoin in my phone wallet. I don't have my wallet with me. I don't have any cash. I don't have a credit card. Oh, okay. I'll use Bitcoin. Nice. That's not going to drive the real value of Bitcoin. So half the people said, no, Bitcoin has other uses. A quarter of people said, nope, if it doesn't scale, it's game over. But a good 30% said, who cares? When Lambo? And see, that's what a lot of Bitcoin maximists, they don't understand that there's a whole group of people in it. And I know John Kim recognizes this, the guy who promotes Litecoin, is that if they're just in it for speculation, then he says, well, he doesn't want to know them because he wants people that are into adoption. Okay, well, that's an evangelist point of view, and that's exactly what he is. He's a Bitcoin evangelist. But there's plenty of people who could give two about whether it scales or anything else. They just want the price to go higher. Now, you can't make people treat an asset the way either it was created to be treated or the way you want it to be treated. The market treats it the way it wants. And what I see going on right now is very few people are buying Bitcoin so that they can spend it on coffee. And what we are seeing is with the institutions, they could care less about this. Remember the whole big backed story was, oh, they were going to help people spend Bitcoin, fiat, and Starbucks. We don't hear about Starbucks at all anymore. What we hear about is the trading. We hear about the custodial. Well, guess what? If something is in cold storage, regulated cold storage, Fidelity Vault, backed vault, Coinbase vault, whatever it is, that's not being spent. So if the bulk of Bitcoin is going into cold storage, who's concerned about using it? Again, it can't be all things to all people. Now, what about Lightning Network? There's no guarantee Lightning Network is going to work, and it's so far. Lightning Network came out, I think Elizabeth Stark wrote a Medium post in 2016. How Lightning, I wish I had the quote here, how Lightning will help Bitcoin scale. Well, people can just give up. It's just a developer thing. It doesn't really exist, the network. The developers developed the Lightning Network. People have to open up channels, and they may decide they don't want to stake their coins. They want to stop testing it. They don't want to use it anymore. No one's using it. They don't want to get in trouble for money transmitters. Who knows? People may not want to use Lightning Network. There's a lot of extra work that goes in currently to doing it, and the only reason you say, oh, of course they will, is because you want them to. People don't even use regular Bitcoin. They don't even use a regular wallet, a regular loaf wallet for Litecoin. And then now they're going to have to step up to Lightning Network. Maybe with a lot, and again, may not be ideal, but if the Bitcoin people have a lot of incentives to promote the Lightning Network through cash incentives with merchants. I mean, Jack Dorsey's involved in this. It has a chance. It may be a solution in search of a problem, but it could very well be a big deal. I'm open to Lightning Network working, but what I'm not open to is that somehow it's essential and it has to happen and it's going to happen. And when it does happen, it's game over and everyone's going to move out of fiat and everyone's going to be holding Bitcoin and Bitcoin's going to be worth $1 million. I don't know. I can see how you can think that way, but to insist on it, that's just derangement. Now, Lightning, this is when I start to think about, okay, well, let's say people do start spending Bitcoin and other currencies. Why does the overflow have to go onto the Lightning Network? Well, because it's Bitcoin and whatever advantage you are in Bitcoin is gone when you're in the Lightning Network. Lightning Network is not the same security. Well, we take the transaction, we toss them onto the blockchain, and we don't have the bottleneck anymore. Yeah, but you don't have the security anymore. So why not transact on a smaller secure blockchain, not one that's as secure as Bitcoin, obviously not one with the same hashing power, on that blockchain, it's just as fast. I mean, why force Bitcoin to be a currency where you can buy coffee? To me, it makes no sense. And, Lightning solves everything. But again, now they're pointing out there's serious vulnerabilities uncovered in the Lightning Network. Not going to go through all of them. But the point is that the Lightning Network is not Bitcoin. And yet the Bitcoin fanatics say that it is what has to happen in order to keep Bitcoin with Satoshi's vision. All this Satoshi's vision and Roger Ver and bigger blocks. These are just people, or not people, these are just camps that are promoting the asset the way they want it to be, either for maybe if you have developer, you believe in a certain type of development, or you believe in a certain theory of money, but more likely you believe in the monetary value that you'll gain if your coin becomes the one coin. So if you're into Bitcoin, whatever that thing is, Bcash or Satoshi's Craig Wright's vision, or Bitcoin itself, Bitcoin Core, most of it has to do with that's the one you've placed your bet on. So what you're going to do is you're then going to tune in to listen to all the knobs telling you why your coin is the best, and that's all you want to hear, and then everything else is a shit coin, or then you start calling Bitcoin Core. A lot of it has to do with just riding your horse and listening to what other people say. And then, of course, if somebody's written a book, well, then there's a book on it, and now you can repeat everything that's in the book, and you can shout people down. All right, let's move on now. So this is this isn't my vision. I could care less how this space develops. It doesn't impact me. I like to do the analysis, but the idea that there can be or should be only one secure blockchain is misguided. Why should there be only? Oh, because gold was in, and that's how it works in money, and everyone. No, it doesn't. There's no law that says it has to do that, and it's not true. Currently, we have many fiat currencies. In the past, we had gold and silver. We never had one currency. You could say gold is better than silver, but so what? In fact, gold serves a different purpose than silver does. Silver was used far more in transactions, and that's kind of my argument. It's somewhat of the Charlie Lee argument that Litecoin would be kind of a store of value, somewhat secure, not as big as Bitcoin. If Bitcoin becomes digital gold, then no one's going to spend it as much, and there's no point in making up all of these extra networks. Then you can use a coin like Litecoin instead. Now, the complaint will come back and say, well, hold on. Litecoin will get clogged up. Okay. If the world moves down the path where everybody's using Bitcoin and they're even using it for transactions and there's overflow into Litecoin, and then they go onto the Lightning Network and then the Litecoin starts going on the Lightning Network as well, that's fine. But what if there's then a group of people who say, I don't want the Lightning Network, I want to secure, and they say, well, Litecoin's kind of clogged and so is Bitcoin. Why wouldn't the market bring in another coin? Now, some people say it can't because there'll all be scams and the shit coins and only Bitcoin. I don't know about that. See, the idea of calling all coins scams is ridiculous because, first of all, and this isn't in defense of Litecoin, but Litecoin wasn't pre-mined. There's no scam in Litecoin other than all it is basically another Bitcoin blockchain, but cleverly on a different mining protocol, so that the mining power isn't being isn't being split between Bitcoin and Litecoin. Now that's a good thing, as Bernie Sanders would say. The idea that, well, all the mining power is now at Bitcoin so that no one has any chance. Well, at some point, isn't it a waste to have all the mining power pushed towards Bitcoin when, if you believe this Bitcoin theory, you're going to use Lightning Network? It won't be needed anyway. I don't think they've thought it through. I don't think they care. I think they just want to say anything that means Bitcoin, and as much as they can say shitcoin, then they're happy with themselves. And the thing is, I like Bitcoin. I'm not against Bitcoin. I'm not in this like asset adoration, the single asset adoration. It has to be Bitcoin. It has to be gold. It has to be silver. It has to be Litecoin. I think that's a form of derangement when you sit around thinking about why you can trash other assets. I mean, you see with the gold pumpers, it's telling you Bitcoin is nasty and it's no good and it's a scam and it's a fraud and it's rat poison squared, whatever. And then you got your Bitcoin people telling you that gold is no value. It's a barbaric relic, drop gold. There's a value and purpose to every asset, not to be ecclesiastic, but it's kind of true. There is some value in all assets. There's no such thing as one asset to rule them all. Then you become like Gollum. My precious. And then that's what you do online. You binge watch Bitcoin maximalist videos and you get a big chuckle out of, you think that you know something because you can call something a shitcoin, or you're a gold bug and you think you've got real wealth, or you're in silver and you can say silver's been money for 5,000 years and that is all I need to know. All right, but the point is there is no limit to the number of miners that can be employed, and there's diminishing returns on having all the world's miners dedicated to one blockchain, especially if Lightning Network is employed and used. I don't know how that's arguable. There's no such thing as, well, all the miners are doing this. Yeah, all the miners that exist today. What's stopping other miners from coming on? There's plenty of companies that make mining equipment. There's plenty of energy in the world. It doesn't all have to be pushed towards Bitcoin. Now, it will be all pushed towards Bitcoin. The reason it's all pushed towards Bitcoin is that's the biggest game in town. There's not market demand for another 30 or 50. That's the people that trash shitcoins are correct. There's not room for right now. There's definitely not room for 4,000 blockchains. Some of those coins, though, aren't currency. Some of those coins are just tokens representing some other BS project that really are securities masquerading as a token and made in a way that you don't get the benefits of a security. But put those aside. There's a number of cryptocurrencies that are cryptocurrencies, and they are minor league imitations of Bitcoin. Some are faster, some use different. And the reason they're not really taking off is because there is not that big of a market yet for cryptocurrencies. It's still in its infancy. But as cryptocurrencies grow, there's nothing to say that everything's going to revolve around Bitcoin. There's going to be coins that'll serve different purposes. Privacy coins, coins that are more secure, coins that are faster, coins that are the most secure so you can buy houses with them, coins that are good for for smart contracts. Who knows? But the Bitcoin maximalists know, the gold bugs know, everyone else who disagrees with them doesn't know anything. All right, let's see what else we have here. We're going to take your comments. I'm sure what I'm saying is semi-controversial. Yep, this idea that there's not need for one blockchain to rule them all, but perhaps my idea is that maybe multiple secure blockchains. And then people say, well, you're advocating for Litecoin. Not really, because if Litecoin and Bitcoin actually reach their potential, then you might need another 2, 3 coins. And what I was thinking is that perhaps arguing for the commencement of a new Bitcoin or Litecoin blockchain that starts up every 2 or 5 years based on market demand. And I'm going to show you where Litecoin is. In a sense, Litecoin is exactly that. It was formed, I think, in 2011 or 12, a couple of years after Bitcoin, on its progression scale in terms of hash rate, users, active wallets, number of transactions. It's about where Bitcoin was in 2012 and 2013. That's perfect. So if Bitcoin reaches its maximum potential, then Litecoin's there. When Litecoin reaches its maximum potential, something else was started next year or the year after. Because again, Bitcoin runs out in, I think it's 2140, as Terry Nearing from Sferia was telling me earlier today. I mean, you keep having and having and having. At some point, there is the whole debate, which I haven't thought through, where the mining incentives come from when the halvings reach to the point where there's the last Bitcoin, everyone's going to be fighting over it. Will they not? How will the Bitcoin ecosystem support itself if they're not running the transactions through the blockchain? So you take the miner fees out because they're putting them on the Lightning Network. None of these things we know, but to insist we know, and it's based on a book you read, I don't know. I think there's not enough thinking going on in the space, and it's because we have experts that have decided they know Bitcoin inside and out, and therefore nothing else matters. All right, now this I just want to briefly mention this stock flow, which has gained a lot of quote currency amongst Bitcoin maximalists. This is not really the play. Lack of developer work seems to be one of the Bitcoin derangement syndrome cuts versus Litecoin, which I love calling a shitcoin. With more than 2 years of development on Lightning, I see zero adoption. So developers doesn't mean anything. It's going to be market adoption. You don't necessarily have to have a lot of it. But that's not what I want. The point I wanted to make is that this idea that this gold analogy, and the stock flow, stating only gold was money. That is definitely not true. Gold was not the only money. Gold may have been desired more as a store of value, but gold was never desired more as a medium of exchange. Only go back to the United States history. Last 100 years, silver was transacted in far greater quantities than gold was. In 1964, the United States used 550 million ounces of silver to mint 1.8 billion coins, quarters, dimes, and half dollars. That's what was transacting. Now, was that silver a store of value as good as gold? No, and I make the point all the time to the silver bugs. Silver is not as good of a store of value as gold. But silver is a far better day-to-day currency, or at least it was, up until the 60s and 70s, for making transactions. You don't buy, back then you didn't buy milk with gold. Gold coins have been out of circulation since the 1930s. So silver has been a transactional currency, but even though gold doesn't have that transactional power, because even though you can make gold into very small pieces and it's even more mutable than silver, it's not a good medium of exchange because of the value. But that doesn't mean silver doesn't have value. In fact, silver has some value. It lost a lot of it, though, when they took it out of the coinage, because then the value of silver was relegated to... Shut the window, the dog's out there. Then silver was relegated to jewelry and commodity use. Solar panels, photography, electronics, and so on. But the idea that there's one currency and it's gold, and therefore the mindless analogy goes Bitcoin is gold and gold is the number one thing and then everything else is a shit coin, that's a silly idea. Now, the other difference is, the reason that's an even dumber idea, I'm sorry, it is a dumb idea because, first of all, the analogies are always faulty. But the reason this analogy is really faulty is because gold is different than Bitcoin. You may say, well, that's mindless too. No, it's not. Gold is molecularly different and unique from silver, from copper, from tin, from aluminum, from a bunch of other metals. Bitcoin can be, and this isn't a no-coiner argument, can be copied. And I know that you can't, like idiots, some idiots say, oh, dude, I can make a coin. I just take the, see, I got the white paper, I can make one too. Yeah, no one's going to use it, no one's going to mine it, it's not going to have any value. I understand the fact that a copy coin or a shit coin, whatever you want to call it, doesn't necessarily have the same value of Bitcoin. But it is different than gold, is you cannot create another gold. Silver is not gold. That's the other thing that the people who argue over silver and gold don't realize. It's silver has a different commodity level of demand, has a different monetary demand profile than gold. It's different. But Bitcoin can be copied, and Bitcoin, if the only use for Bitcoin, the only two uses for Bitcoin or three uses are, forget smart contracts, but let's say the real reasons for Bitcoin are store of value and medium of exchange, you can copy that. Now, will you be successful in creating the same large ecosystem with the number of developers, the number of miners, the number of exchanges, the number of wallets, the whole, probably not, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. So Bitcoin is not like gold because gold can't be replicated. And again, this isn't a gold is better than Bitcoin because of that reason. It's just pointing out that when you make these analogies, you can't just assume, okay, I'm going to take the analogy and I'm going to just say, yep, it's just like gold, because it's not. So you can replicate Bitcoin, not the way the no-coiners exist, but if there's a market demand for a transactional cryptocurrency, there would be financial incentives to recreate another blockchain. Unlike gold, which really can't be recreated, it can only be further mined. in some respects, maybe that makes gold a more perfect store of value than Bitcoin. But maybe it doesn't. Now, the other thing that kind of irks me is this idea they argue about what is money. And it's not only is it it's a red herring argument, but it's one that everyone makes against the asset they don't like. So today there was an article in CCN was saying why Bitcoin is not money. Okay, and then you get the people, Bitcoiners saying why Bitcoin is the only money because it doesn't have a commodity use. And then the gold people say gold is money, period. JP Morgan said, which is not a correct quote, gold is money, everything else is just credit. You get the people, the silver people, silver's been money for 5,000 years, not realizing that all of them have serious flaws in today's world as money. Silver, as we mentioned, doesn't circulate as a currency, so kind of fails that test. But the real question is, who cares? So when I debated, what's his name, David Morgan on the Kennedy Financial Channel, he was telling me, which rightfully, there's a number of states that now have declared that there's no capital gains on silver and therefore you can use it as legal tender. And then I asked him, well, who does? He says, well, nobody. Okay. So legally, yeah, and maybe you could say it's money, but if no one uses it, that's the old tree fall in a forest and there's no one there to hear it. Doesn't make a sound. I don't know, you can argue that it does, but as a practical matter, it doesn't because no one's there to hear it. So I say too many people are concerned with defining what money is rather than identifying value. And here's the point. I've been hearing for 10 years, silver is money. That is all I need to know. They've been using silver for 5,000 years. Gold is money. Well, okay, buy silver because you think it's money. Lose 40% the last 10 years. But don't buy palladium because it's not money and I can prove it through the stock flow. Who cares whether it's money or not? The question is, what value does it have? Does it fit neatly into a definition of money? I don't care. I really don't. Other than academically, I can discuss it and you can go through your different tests for money and so on. But the fact that you may be able to determine that silver is money, period, Bitcoin is the only real money, I don't really care. I don't think most people care whether something is money or not, other than they've been convinced to care that that's the important thing. I've seen people say, oh, I don't care, silver's money. All right. But why do you own silver? And most people own silver because they think it's going to go up in fiat value. And it doesn't, and palladium goes up, but palladium's not money, so now they think, well, that's okay. Silver's money, and I can prove it. Okay. And the Bitcoiners do the same thing. Bitcoin, and then the gold people say Bitcoin can't be money, isn't money. It's really a red herring argument. People wasting a lot of time trying to figure out what's money, what's not money. I try to figure out what's valuable and what isn't. So they'll say, well, the dollar isn't value. The dollar isn't money. The dollar's toilet paper. No, the dollar has value because one big reason everyone uses it. Now, I don't want to get into why they use it in the United States, dollar hegemony, end of dollar hegemony, D-dollar. I'm not going to get into that. The point is that's what gives it value. And that's what could give another currency value. People use it. And now, people use the Venezuelan bolivar, and that doesn't give it any value. That means you want to get rid of it. But there are currencies that have, Janet Yellen said, well, the dollar is not really a good store of value. No, it's not. She knows that, but it's a good want to have. Think of it this way. People get paid in dollars, not gold. They may invest their money or store their money in gold. But the reason they want dollars is because that's the currency people need. People aren't going to take Bitcoin. They might take Bitcoin because they want to take a flyer and hold on to the Bitcoin, but not till no one's going to get Bitcoin other than, your practicing evangelist is going to accept their entire salary in Bitcoin and then go out and spend it. If you think about it, you know anything about Bitcoin, that would be stupid. Why? Because if you believe all this or half the stuff they're saying about Bitcoin, you'd be throwing money away. And if you believe the naysayers, you're taking a big risk. So no one would do it. That's why the dollar has value. Because it's a reliable medium of exchange if it's not a reliable store of value. All right. Now, let's move on, and we'll close with this. And this, again, is not any investment advice or trying to promote one coin over the other, one metal over the other. But, totally true. Bitcoin is the big kahuna, whatever you want to call it. It's got the biggest hash rate. It's got the biggest everything. And there's no denying that. If you don't understand that, then you don't understand Bitcoin. But that doesn't mean, and therefore, everything that flows from that means that it's the best and it's going to be the only, and central banks are going to use it, and it's just going to drive everyone out, and everyone's going to be having a Bitcoin wallet. I don't know. Okay. But if people actually realize that, and markets realize that, most likely they're going to hold on to it like they do gold, right? And they're going to use it for large transactions. Remember, the topic here was whether we're going to use Bitcoin for coffee or Lambos or yachts or luxury homes. If I had Bitcoin in large enough numbers, I wouldn't be buying coffee with it. And if it went up to like 3 million, whatever they say it's going to go, I'd buy a yacht with it. Or, I'd be Elmer J. Fudd, millionaire, in a mansion and a yacht. I wouldn't be buying. Well, I would care less if I could use it for coffee. I really wouldn't. I don't think I'm unique in that. But buying coffee with the Lightning Network means all that hash power in the Bitcoin network is of little consequence. Why have a massively secure network? And why would the miners want to continue to support such a network? If you're just doing stuff off chain and then, hey, by the way, you go put that on the blockchain, big fella. Especially if there's other coins like Litecoin or just even fiat. But let's take a look before we close out here. Just Litecoin versus Bitcoin. It's a rough out. Again, analogies are never the best. But right now, I did this like a month ago. The numbers are a little off because the hash rate's gone down since the halving. I think the hash rate today is 350. Had gotten as high as about 5.25. But that's the hash rate that Bitcoin had in August 2013. Daily transactions, it says 30,000. Today they're at 40,000. Daily transactions, and it took Bitcoin to June 2012 to get to 30,000. Obviously, it took later to get to 40,000, and the market cap is 5.8 billion at the time. I think right now it's about 4.6 billion. Point is, it took Bitcoin till November 2013. So if the idea that Bitcoin was moving inexorably towards being the only coin, there wouldn't be a Litecoin. There's the market right there. Oh, but that's only because Charlie Lee worked for Coinbase and he got... Okay, you can come up. There's always going to be some reason, but if the thing actually still exists, I don't care whether it's Charlie Lee or Coinbase or people don't know any. That's the other thing people say. When people say, well, that's because the market doesn't understand. No. You don't understand. You don't set what the market's supposed to understand. I remember once I was with a group of people and we were doing an IPO when I was a lawyer, and then the lawyers and the bankers were all sitting around. I said, what do you think this thing will open at? What do you think will close at? And I was very junior. I was like the second or third year associate. And I nailed the open and the close. Like, this proves that they don't manipulate them because if or at least the people in the room didn't know, I nailed the opening price and the closing price. And they were trying not to pay the bet because they were arguing that the market didn't understand this and that. And I said, no, I took that into account. That the market wouldn't have perfect information or wouldn't look at it the way you were looking at it. All right, but here we go. Now, Bitcoin transactions the past 24 hours. This, I think, is very telling, and I'll leave you with this, and we'll get into your comments. In the last 24 hours, Bitcoin has had 338,000 transactions, Litecoin close to 40. Well, that's 8 times more Bitcoin transactions. You say, well, Bitcoin's the big winner there. Yeah, okay. Anyway, these transactions, they're not buying coffee. A lot of this is just moving money back and forth, but... Another telling one, Bitcoin active wallets, 663,000, 122,800 Litecoin wallets. That's only 5 times fewer, or 5 times more for Bitcoin. But the market cap of Bitcoin, justifiably, is 40x. What does this mean? Well, if Bitcoin was moving towards just being the coin, Litecoin had been gone already. Chicago School of Economics, the market would just realize that Litecoin's a shitcoin, and it'd be gone. So no amount of calling Litecoin or any other coin a shitcoin is going to drive it out of the market. The market will drive it out of the market, or will drive Bitcoin out of the market. All right, let's see what you guys are thinking. If you did enjoy this presentation, off there. As I was saying, if you enjoyed this presentation, you can consider leaving a tip. I take Bitcoin and Litecoin, even Ethereum. I think there's a link below this BitChute, this YouTube on the Smaulgld website to send Ethereum. I don't take any shit coins. Just kidding. I would. I mean, I don't have the wallets for them. I'm not a big crypto person collecting crypto, but I do have that option. If you didn't appreciate this presentation, I do appreciate tips. Also, you can support Smaulgld by sending items of value to my P.O. box. It was just there today. You can send checks, you can send cash, you can send items of value. People have sent silver through the mail, which is very nice. Or you can become a Smaulgld patron if you're a regular listener. Or you can join Subscribestar. I finally hit the 5 Subscribestar members that I need so I can actually cash out what's been in there for a few months. Patreon, we're doing a bit better. We got 25 wonderful patrons. PayPal one-time donations, so I do appreciate the support. And of course, you should have your Smaulgld mugs. They truly are game changers, and they really are real wealth. People should be buying mugs. If you can't drink out of it, you don't own it. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comment section. Oh, we see Morning Mayan. It's great to see you back on YouTube. You know, I'm not happy about it, being back on YouTube. Last night, I got suspended from Twitter, and I really don't know why, but I just don't trust the YouTube. And last night, I had only 30 views on my YouTube. And I normally get like 200, 300 by the first couple of hours. So I don't know what's going on. I won't tell you why I think I got suspended on Twitter, but I didn't. I really, if you look at my Twitter feed, there's nothing on there. So anyway, let's see who's here and what you guys have to say. Jack loved the epic intro. Mark Battaglia music. Ann is here. Max is here. Chrono Trigger fan. It's interesting to note that the Mises theory of money and credit expressly states that store of value is a secondary use case that is born of medium exchange. Yes. And the idea that somehow they've perverted that into, well, people are going to store Bitcoin and then they're going to use it. No, I think they're thinking they're going to store Bitcoin because they think they can store it, and that's it. I don't think that that's how it works. But again, the Mises theory of money and credit and the regression theory did not anticipate someone making money out of thin air, like Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, that they would create it as a thing, quote, sui generis, as they say in Latin, a thing unto itself. Gold and silver were not things unto themselves. I mean, they weren't created as money. They were valued for their own purpose. Yep, Jack is right. Whether or not this is applicable 70 plus years later is debatable, says Chrono Trigger fan, but Mises would not be a Bitcoin maximalist. And nor would, that's a name. Neither nor. What's that character's name? The guy who always talks about competing currencies that Hans Hopig said is a crackpot because he believes in the gold standard. The guy's name, competing currencies. He's not Mises. He is the guy. What is his name? Anyway, I'll get to it. I'm looking him up right now. It's not Mengler. His name is Hayek. I didn't find it, but it just came to me. Okay, yeah. Hayek would not be a Bitcoin maximalist. I like Hayek's point of view. We don't have Hayek's point of view because governments dictate through fiat what's going to be the currency. Now, what a guy like Rothbard or Hoppe would say is, yeah, but people are going to pick gold. Okay, but they don't have to. And in fact, the reason silver existed, in part, there's always a political angle to this. I mean, when you start talking about gold wins out, I don't think they know their history. At least in the United States, it was a bimetallic standard. There were the silver Democrats. They wanted inflationary silver. They promoted silver. They could have won. They could have forced silver onto the system. It was the Republican East Coast establishment that threw them out and won and put everyone on the gold standard. Didn't have to turn out that way. It's politics. Doesn't mean people chose that. Actually, the people chose silver. They wanted the inflationary money. Mises, another point always says, Chrono Trigger fan is, when given the option, public will choose cheap money. And that's what silver was. And the reason silver was the cheap money wasn't because it was worth less. It was because the government was willing to value it more because of the silver mining. It was called free silver. You bring 25, 30 cents worth of silver to the mint and they stamp $1 on it. Who could be against that? I don't think when they talk about this stuff, they know the full history. And says, Litecoin is easy and cheap to transact in. That is true. Chrono Trigger for precisely, Lewis. A cryptocurrency requires genuine monetary velocity and a market ecosystem if it wants to be money. And that's why silver is not, and nor is Bitcoin really, and nor is gold. So as I say, all of these supposed monies have their limitations. But again, it's a red herring. Who cares? Are they valuable? The function that they serve, whether it's a store of value, medium exchange, whatever, jewelry, that's what gives them our industry. That's where I look. Money is only a component. It's not dispositive as to whether something's going to have value. All right. Let's see what else. Jack, Smaulgld, if you want to buy something from Russia, they don't take the US dollar. They take rubles or Bitcoin, so you don't need to use your fiat because technically you can't in that scenario. Okay. That's a good point for that's a good point for Hayek. Competing currencies. Different currency for a different reason. Not this one currency to rule them all. All right. You guys are arguing. Well, Doge and Litecoin are mined together, but I'm not going to get into the whole chrono and debate. Chrono, I gotta have Chrono back on. I'm looking at these comments. There's a lot there to discuss. I probably have to cut and paste this stream here. Or I'll just give Chrono Trigger Fan a call and we can discuss it. All right, what else do we have? Well, he's got so much stuff. I cannot cover it all. I hope you guys are reading his comments and Ann's comments. Okay, here we go. DW, let's see, nope. Shlomo Schleckenberg, I'm a physicist and I own all the crypto pumpers. All right. Wow, lots of comments. I'm going to have to cut it short here, so we're almost coming up to an hour. Yeah. Wow, you had a real conversation while I was talking. I must have prompted a lot. All right, Josh Rampapori, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin Cash? Okay, so it's very fashionable to trash Bcash, and a lot of it has to do with the personalities behind it. And of course, it's very fashionable to trash BSV because that personality behind that is also sometimes held up to scorn. I don't get into that. I mean, the idea, okay, we got a problem with scaling, so we'll just make bigger blocks. You're like, okay. And we have like 3 miners working on it. If people want to use that stuff, I don't care. The only problem I had with that was then trying to hijack the name and say, oh no, this is Bitcoin. That was Bitcoin Core. That's the biggest problem I have with it. People want to try out stuff and they want to try stuff that people say are destined to fail, and let them fail. Let them put their big blocks out there. You can scoff at them. You can laugh at them. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Who cares? Same with BSV. I'm not against people trying those things. What I'm against is insisting it's going to be Bitcoin. Everything else is a shitcoin. Let the market tell you what's going to happen. To insist. And then to use these faulty analogies and stock flow. And all you're doing is creating a system where you can be right about the future, and you can't. I mean, if you make all your assumptions, you make all your analogies, and then you plug in your own numbers, and the idea is that this is what determines value, and this is what determines why Bitcoin will be the only coin. Of course, you're going to come to that conclusion. You get everybody to shake their head and read the prayer book, and then you repeat that, and then you think you understand something. I don't think you do. Anyway, I do want to thank everyone for joining me tonight and for all the donations and all the support we've been getting recently. And we will see you tomorrow.